Welcome once again our viewers to The Link this week. And as we already say, it's a pleasure to be facilitating you with information that you can use and opportunities in the business area. And tonight we continue with that quest. Tonight we're talking about global and also local economics, things you might have heard, but you don't make sense of, or you don't know that they will affect you. And in the studio, we have the right guest to talk about these things, Mr. Kenneth Engola, who is the manager corporate sales at Stanbic Bank, Uganda's biggest bank. So they deal in, big business also SMEs. So they know what they're talking about. So Mr. Kenneth Engola, welcome.
Thank you.
Our time is short, so we go straight away. What are some of the key global uncertainties that Uganda, as an economy, is likely to face in the near future, for which me, the business person, should care about?
Thank you for having me. And so there are a couple of things that, the economy is currently exposed to and that, should keep us awake. One, we forecasted post-COVID, we've seen very decent economic growth, and we're now inching towards 6 to 6.5%.
Okay.
However, there are risks to that. We do see, one, the geopolitical conflicts, Ukraine-Russia conflict, and its impact on supply chains, for example, and that's directly impacting the economy. We also note that globalization up to this point has kind of built very interconnected economies. But now we are starting to see a shift towards protectionism. We're seeing the Western economies starting to talk about protectionism of the individual economies.
When you say protectionism, you mean people looking inwards?
Looking inwards, and you can talk about the tariffs that are coming out of the US economy from the current new administration. And so the question then is how does this trickle down, or how does this have an impact to an importer or a trader in Chikubo, who is dependent on importation from China, which is currently at the risk of potential 30-20% tariffs being imposed by China on their exports. So how does that trickle down to us, in the domestic economy in Uganda? And then further again, like I did highlight that, we are currently moving towards, fast oil, and we're projecting growth above 6%. So what are those risks that could impact, the investment in the oil sector, from a global investment perspective, given the current environment that we see tariffs likely to come and hit different aspirations? Yes.
You touched something there briefly. Let's touch it briefly before we go to the next question. Oil as an opportunity, but then with the geopolitics, are we seeing the oil opportunity kind of counterbalancing on the negatives, or it actually might be impacted?
No, it's a very interesting one there because, you must be aware we've seen all the concerns around climate change and fossil fuels and the shift towards, clean energy, And at some point, I think this was almost something that was going to impact on the investment in the oil finds in the country, But, we have been resilient, against that. And I think we're still on schedule for fast oil.
Yes.
And so, to answer that, I would say that, I think we're still on a positive path, and I think we're still moving towards fast oil, and we've been resilient, in this regard.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we know that the biggest economic player in the world has also changed goalposts on that, but discussion for another day.
Sure.
That's the US. Yes. Okay. Let's talk about the US President Trump's, policy. He's fighting the second biggest economy in the world, and those elephants are fighting. And Uganda, we are plugged in somehow, as you hinted on earlier. What are the hidden dangers for me as a business, specifically speaking? I am a Chikubo trader, or any other importer coming from China.
Yes, thanks for that. So, like I did highlight that one, there is the threat around tariffs being imposed by the US on, China exported goods. At the moment, this threat is directly between the trade relations between China and the US. But equally, Uganda is a key importer from China. Yeah. We have very good trade relations, both from a funding perspective and also from a trade perspective. And so there's a likely potential risk that we may see some of this trickle down into the inflationary perspective. Yeah. We may see imported inflation because of, increase in goods coming out of the tariffs being imposed, on the Chinese goods. But I think it's a bit early for now, and as we continue monitoring this, I think for the common business trader downtown, these are some of the risks that one would like to keep themselves aware to or alive to. Supply chain is key in this point in time because this is definitely going to be a disruptor, from a supply chain perspective. And so I think for the business traders or importers, this is something for them to critically critically look out for. Yes.
Okay, don't be surprised. Be ready for possible price changes.
Yes.
Okay. USAID cuts aid. Okay, not USAID actually. Trump again. Sizes down USAID, almost closes it down. And here we have a figure of about $500 billion scheduled to come to Uganda this year, and yet this is February, talking about it. What's the big deal there in terms of business and economic players in Uganda?
Yes, so quite interested because the USAID is one of the key donors, or rather one of the biggest donors in the country. With, if you look at this current financial year or fiscal year, they have appropriated approximately $550 million to Uganda. So the thing, or what is at risk there, is we have a whole ecosystem dependent on this funding. We have the health sector that is dependent on this funding. We have a host of non-governmental organizations whose activities are dependent on this funding. Now, these organizations, equally like highlighted, do depend on or have an ecosystem. So we have suppliers, we have jobs at risk,
Absolutely.
and therefore, it's definitely going to have an impact. But this freeze was for a 90-day window, which ends in March. It will be keen to see how that pans out to us domestically, to see how that, what kind of impact it will have in terms of the funding that has been going to the health sector, and whether as a country we're able to find alternatives to that. It will also be interesting to see how the non-governmental organization sectors, most of those who have been USAID funded, come out of this, from resilience and sustainability perspective.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kenneth, tell me, I'm a supplier and I'm in that ecosystem of USAID. I come to Stanbic. You're looking at me, I've been a good guy, but there is issues. What would you tell me if it was business advisory?
So we've scheduled an economic symposium that will be coming through in March. Will be held in Kampala Serena, and these are some of the conversations we're going to be having in the room. Just to try and help our clients navigate some of these risks and challenges. We have brought together different industry specialists, thought leaders, cutting across from different sectors, and these are some of the issues that are going to be on the table. And our hope or our anticipation is that through the discussions and through the ideas that are going to be shared, some of the businesses that are currently impacted, or the organizations that are currently impacted, will find ways to navigate the current situation they're in at the moment. Okay.
But realistically, coming down, and I know some people may not attend the forum, but they're saying, aha, the Stanbic man is in the studio. I want to hear. I am in the I am in the ecosystem of USAID and the related parties, and I'm losing contracts and everything else. Apart from navigation, how do I thrive even or be resilient, practically speaking?
Yes, so like I highlighted, we are in a very dynamic global and domestic economic environment. We've talked about the tariffs, and now we're talking about organizations or businesses that are going to find themselves out of business. Absolutely. Probably because of the actions of the aid freeze globally by the US government. And so I think this calls for a time where businesses need to start thinking beyond where they're operating from. Like I did say, that we are holding this forum to try and have conversations around how do we navigate this current tide. So I think for such businesses or organizations, this is a key or a crucial point in time where they need to sit back and find ways to navigate this environment. I will not say we have a straight answer for that at the moment, but I do believe as a bank we've had sufficient resources and sufficient teams that can be able to sit down with our clients and try and support them on how they can navigate the current environment or economic environment they find themselves in.
Okay.
Yes.
And finally, the forum, which is, it's going to talk business, banks to clients, but also there are those who are not your clients, but they will remember the brand for associated with giving us advice. Who can attend? Clients only?
No, actually this is open to everyone, to business leaders, to thought leaders, to you, and even to our audience out there, because the purpose of this, is to put a conversation in the room. Like I did highlight, the current economic environment is very dynamic. And actually the theme for this year's symposium is globalization reshaped, riding the waves of the economic shifts.
Yeah.
And so this is open to everyone, because we do believe that this current environment impacts on everyone, depending or irrespective of which sector you find yourself in. This impacts on you, and therefore, we'll be glad to host or to have, the different leaders from different sectors, thought leaders, industry players. This is open to everyone, to our clients, and we'll be looking forward to hosting you, in March when this comes up.
Okay, the date is
11th of March at the Kampala Serena. We'll also be having a live feed. Which I
was going to ask about that. What if I can't come to Serena?
I mean, in this day and age, it's impossible not to have a live feed. So we're going to be having a live feed on the social media handles that will be available on our social media handles at Stanbic.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kenneth Engola, Manager Corporate Sales, Stanbic Bank, for painting the picture on the global events, America, China, and everything else, USA, and so on. So viewers, we always promise you to give you information you can use. You can use that, I believe. And if you want to hear more, if you can't come to Serena on March 3rd, right?
11th.
Yeah. Catch it online. It is there for you. Just load data on your phone and listen in to things that will help you look at the global dynamics and how they can affect your business. You might have been planning to grow or to expand or to invest, and now your contracts are being threatened, and now you're wondering, what do I do? Such things will be discussed beside everything else. That was the link. Thank you for joining us. Good night.
Thank you.